I didn't expect there to be this much animal abuse in Steamboat Willie. I'm really getting into Disney shorts at the moment, as I find they're just little snapshots of Disney history, and they're so magical, and I love reading about the background information about them and which artists were involved. And it did occur to me that I hadn't seen Steamboat Willie all the way through. The only bit I'd seen is kind of the most famous bit where Mickey is driving the steamboat and begins to whistle the song Steamboat Bill, upon which, of course, the name of which comes from that. And that's all I'd seen. I had no idea what this was actually about. It turns out it's really weird and a little bit uncomfortable. In theory, this was the debut for Mickey and Minnie, but apparently, according to Wikipedia, I've yet to clarify this, they did appear in a test screening of something just beforehand. But as an introduction to Mickey Mouse, I think it's pretty accurate in terms of his mannerisms and his behaviour. He doesn't speak, we don't have that voice there. The soundtrack that goes through this, by the way, is pretty great. Apparently, Walt wanted to create a sound cartoon after watching The Jazz Singer, and certainly the sound of this is, I really like it. I thought it was pretty great. In terms of the actual actions, it's very odd. Basically, this riverboat docks off to pick up some cargo, and Minnie Mouse appears. And what I love, there's this sentence from the plot from Wikipedia, and this says, Mickey takes her, Minnie, on board by hooking the cargo crane to her underwear. Yeah, that's the least of this thing's problems. I mean, I love this. It's an absolutely adorable, darling cartoon, but I won't say too much, but at one point, Mickey is swinging a cat by the tail, he's pulling pigs' tails, he's cranking a goat's tail to make music. I feel like a lot of animals are in a lot of pain at this. And on the one hand, it's quite fun and entertaining, but I do worry that some young children would have tried to copy this. Particularly as, in 1928, a lot more people lived on farms and earned their keep through farming, so a lot more people would have had cows and whatever. So that's a little bit awkward, but the nature of the narrative and the fact that they are playing music on animals does lend itself to this, this really great soundtrack that's quite fun, and the soundtrack and the action on screen, the animation mirror each other very well. It fits in well, and everything does seem to flow. So although I may think that it's a bit questionable in terms of narrative, I do feel like the animation quality is lovely. It's really beautiful, particularly for the 20s. It's very fluid. It's lovely to look at. The soundtrack is really good, and the narrative flows well. It's for 7 minutes. It packs in quite a story, and it does that very well. And everything's fully synchronized. It's beautiful. It's one of the most important pieces of Disney magic and Disney history, and I just think it's absolutely wonderful. It's morally questionable, but just 7 minutes of thinking, this is where Mickey began. And although Mickey Mouse is not the only thing to come out of Disney, of course, he is the most iconic Disney character. You go to the Disney parks, you're greeted by a face of Mickey Mouse on the floor or in the flower beds. Had Mickey not been created, would Disney be where it is today? Arguably, yes. They had a lot of other great outputs, but Mickey has helped to carry Disney through kind of different transitions over the decades. Very interesting introduction to Mickey. I like it. It's good fun. If you haven't seen it, it's on Disney+. It's not my favourite Disney short, but at the same time, it kind of is. It depends on what I want. If I'm looking for a fun short, this isn't it. It's disturbing in some ways. But in terms of historical importance and just a really nice little production, a little animated production, it's done well. 1928, pretty impressive production. Definitely worth watching if you love Disney.